back. It's Lionel, tech lead and partner at Westport. Last week, 1,000 subscribers, but this week we interrupt your regular programming. I had a bunch of items available to bring you this huge news on the internet, and basically it has blown up. It is just out of control. I had to respond to this in my inbox today, yesterday, all week. Hundreds and hundreds of emails asking the question, how can I get out of the cloud? A lot of tech leads, a lot of developers, even people who are using the big tech, the big FANG, they are interested and wondering how they can actually get out of the cloud. And you guys are very familiar with the events that have been happening stateside, and especially how big tech has responded. Now, I'm not a fan on either side of the equation, but it's really scary as a tech lead that if your company, first of all, is taken off the Play and Apple Store, and then your hosting is disconnected. I mean, to us, this is not just about what the company is, but think about the employees, users, people, you're just disappearing off the grid, livelihoods being affected. And this is a serious concern. I mean, we deal as tech leads about service outages, all this kind of stuff every single day. But do you deal when your service provider cuts off the thing, when your cloud provider cuts off the power? Now, this is really shocking, right? This is like, me, suddenly my mobile plan is disconnected without any warning in 24 hours. People are wondering where I have disappeared. Have I been kidnapped? Can I have dropped off the side of the earth? The people are worried. I mean, if this was real world, right, it would be like your house not having any power, not having heat during winter. This is what it is in the tech business. And a lot of people have figured out that this is kind of like them always eating out at a restaurant, right? And then finally the restaurant bans them. They come home and they realize they don't even own a microwave. So what are they gonna do? So the question I was receiving is, Lionel, what's the best strategy and how do I migrate out of the cloud? Now, you might not be interested in migrating right now out of the cloud, but it's a very good idea to actually explore the ways to do it. And PHP has always been one of the forefront of the open source movement. PHP is usually the people's language. It is the language that was not originated by any one of the big companies. It's not adopted by any one of the big companies. So what I've decided to do is put up a video today and give you the overall strategies of how you cannot be so reliant on the cloud. You may not be able to 100% tear yourself out of the cloud, but you can definitely make your business much more sustainable if you do this. Now, before I begin, I just want to define what exactly do we mean by the cloud. There's a lot of meanings or a lot of interpretations. I want to define the cloud as what we call big tech infrastructure. Okay, this is the, you've probably heard of them about AWS, using all the technology and using SaaS or PaaS, platform as a service. Okay, either one of these two I would consider the cloud. So how do you not use these things, and how do we move your tech infrastructure? Currently what you have, you're reliant, you're using a lot of service. How do we migrate that into something else where you're not at this kind of risk? So I have a 4-step plan, 4 points, and let's go through them one by one. Okay, the first point, right, is the right mindset moving out of the cloud. This is very important, and I don't want you to skip this step. The reason is, if you don't have the right mindset, it will not be a successful strategy. So now we have the push of why you want to be doing it. The same reason why you should learn how to cook and not always eat at a restaurant, because one day the restaurant might be closed, or another day they might just ban you completely. So the first thing you need to understand is the own or buy. PaaS or SaaS is about renting software. Okay, there's always a landlord there, and at certain points, if you play the wrong music or you're too loud, they may kick you out. That's always a concern there. So the other thing you need to remember is that it may cost more time and it will certainly cost more money. What am I saying this is that most SaaS and PaaS, they run on a long-term contract structure. So they have less money upfront and more money throughout the time that you're using. It's a rent instead of buy strategy. Open source, self-hosted, these things are more upfront. But it's kind of like owning your own house, right? You pay a lot of money up front, and after that, you pay less in the future. That's the key thing. You're gonna pay a little bit more up front. You're gonna maintain it yourself. You don't have a landlord to go and call and fix it. You're also gonna have to not be so sprawling. So because you're paying a lot of it up front, you cannot have all the scalability, all these things, because these companies want to do a loss leading strategy. They want to have numbers, they want to get low cost economics, so they have high number of users. So once you've committed and said, look, I rather own my infrastructure, I want to have full control of my stuff, then you're ready to look at migrating out of the cloud. So point 2 of my strategy is Maria Kondo your tech stack. Okay? What am I talking about? There's this lady, Maria Kondo. She always goes around and she throws out stuff that you don't need. So when you deal with your tech stack and you've been rushing around buying cloud services, you may find your software stack like a gigantic octopus. Okay, it may be just sprawling everywhere. You've subscribed all here, you've got tech stacks, you've got 20, 30, 50 different kinds of software that's running at the same time, and you've got subscriptions everywhere. It's time to check if they spark joy. Okay, so you're gonna have to go through one by one of these things and say, do we really need it? Can we get rid of it? The reason is that if your thing is sprawled out, if you're on Google Cloud, AWS, Azure, whatever it is, right? It's sprawled out, it's very hard to migrate. So you want to start cutting out as many services as possible and looking at the minimalization of your tech stack. All right. Some people say they can't do it, but you've seen the show on TV, you've seen Marie Kondo, they can do it. A lot of stuff you hardly use, a lot of stuff your users hardly use. So can you do this? Can you downscale? So that's the first case of it, right? Bringing down all the services. You really need S3. Do you really need CDN? Do you really need all this stuff? Do you really need a load balancer that they are using? Do you need managed databases? All this stuff, you really need to look at it, okay? So that's the first case. Maria Kondo your tech stack, remove stuff that you don't need. Okay, number 3 is start using wholesale services. So don't use SaaS anymore, okay? I've seen a very good example of this is just using, say, a DigitalOcean droplet instead of the managed database or instead of any one of these other services. Start going across and saying, okay, which one of this software can I just use a wholesale service for? I don't want to have Lambda functions. Can I just use a normal server? Let me give you the point on what you want to do with this. First, you want to move from some of the big name cloud guys into some of the smaller cloud guys, okay? Now, 2 of them that come to mind that are pretty good are Linode and DigitalOcean. In fact, I use DigitalOcean. Got no money from them. The reason being is that as a wholesale provider, right, they're not so inclined to control what you're using. They're not the Shopify, they're just providing the hosting, just a very low level of it, and they're not as famous as all these brands. So that's the first area. The second area, once you've gone to like a wholesale level or what we call the raw level, you can move around very easily. You can just copy the entire container or the entire server and just redeploy it somewhere else. And if things get really, really hairy, you might want to put it in Switzerland or Ireland or one of these places with really good privacy laws when they can't touch the thing. So what you want to do, let's scale it down, move it all into simple blocks of droplets. If you have to run it and sprawl it all over the place, try not to do that with that, okay? So go wholesale, go raw, try to go on a container basis. Bringing that back to my PHP style, right? I would just simply run the LAMP stack out of a server or VPS, and I'll put the E2, I'll put the MySQL inside there. There will be not very many things going out. Even Memcache and Redis will be on that same server. I will not use any of the services provided, even load balancers. I could just use that in there. So keep it all contained as much as possible if your business is not too big, or as I said, pick and choose and scale that particular component. The final point is use open source and be more creative. Okay, I know you go around and you say, hey, I need to scale my pictures. Here's a service by AWS. I need to compress stuff. Here's a service. You're gonna have to be more creative. You're basically cooking for yourself at home. But that's not a negative point. You can actually use a lot of the services and create them yourself and then fit them. What am I talking about? Like here at Westport, we don't use any kind of Atlassian or whatever. We use our own task managing software. Yes, we had to maintain it, we have to upgrade it, we have to take care of it, but with a lot more, not reliant on anybody else. Prices could go up, it doesn't really affect us. So you're gonna have to be more creative, you're gonna have to do a little bit more coding. I'm gonna give you a couple of examples that some people have asked me on the email. I'll just answer them right here on some of the creative ideas. So how do you replace, say, Shopify? That's a very easy one. We've got WooCommerce, we've got OpenCart, there are tons of open source shopping cart softwares. You can look at those guys and install them on a single server, and then you do away with Shopify. Another example, how do I deal with the Google real-time Firebase database, right? Now, I made a suggestion to this chap, so why don't we use Swole, powered up with the E2 framework at the back. Anytime that you're updating, remember there's only the infrastructure is you have this middleware. Middleware is just the basic thing that connects with the database, right? And as long as you're not going out there, time you touch that can be a real-time event, especially Swole, which is real-time, right? So you can create the same thing using this tech stack, and it can live on a simple LAMP stack VPS. It doesn't have to go outside of that. So you build it as an API and put it in it, and then you're done away with Firebase. You don't worry about the number of calls, you don't worry about the database, you basically just pay for the wholesale. There are going to be countless events like this, okay? Countless ability or times where you're going to have to look for all the alternatives, but that isn't a bad thing. It could save you a lot of money in the long run. Remember, the right mindset for this. Okay, guys? So, look, plenty of options. I again tell you guys, go back, look at what PHP is doing in terms of open source. This could be your solution to get yourself off this addiction to the cloud services, especially all the tech leads out there. On the cloud, it's not always the best option, but you always want to keep your options available. And that's the bottom line because the tech lead said so.